Hello, my pets, and welcome into the dungeon, the podcast for submissives to learn, grow, be entertained, and to ultimately find empowerment in their lifestyle, and where dominant women get to stop apologizing for how power actually moves through them, which is exactly what today's episode is all about. Today's episode is for women who've ever thought, I know I'm dominant, but why does this feel exhausting sometimes? Or I feel like I'm a femdom, but I don't know how to fully embrace or embody that. Yes, this episode is directed towards femdoms. However, I think it's also really important for submissives out there to hear this as well. There are a lot of expectations or beliefs that many submissives hold regarding what a femdom or a dominatrix is and isn't, and what that should look like or feel like. And I'm here to tell you that once you release all of those ideas and meet your femdom or a femdom where she is and see her for who she is, then everything will move more smoothly and organically in your female-led relationship. There is no right way to be a dominant woman, but there is a wrong way, and that is trying to lead like someone that you're not. There's one thing that I want to make abundantly clear from the onset. There is no single way to be a dominant woman in a female-led relationship. And the fastest way to burnout is to lose desire or to quietly resent your submissive is trying to perform a style of dominance that isn't native to you or it isn't natural to you. So today we're talking about female-led relationship dominant archetypes. Not as boxes, not as an aesthetic, and not as types that you should try to become, but more as patterns of power. This episode isn't really about choosing who you want to be. It's about recognizing how power already moves through you. Because once you recognize yours, everything gets easier. It's not work anymore. It's not even trying. So let's first get really clear on exactly what this archetype thing is, right? So these archetypes, it's not personality tests. They're not zodiac signs. They're not costumes. Though, for full transparency, it can be wildly fun to try on another archetype or even just call upon that energy that already exists inside you when the moment requires. But archetypes are actually patterns of motivation under your power. Two women can look dominant to the outside world and be energized by completely different things on the inside. As always, I want to emphasize that most people aren't just one thing. This is not putting someone in a box, but merely a way to understand what energy you are dominant in and what else you may have marinating inside. You usually have one primary archetype, the one that feels regulating, grounding, sustainable. To me, it feels like home. And then there's generally a secondary or even a third archetype. And these just add flavor. It adds texture and dynamism to who you are. So here's the key distinction I want you to listen for throughout this episode. You might behave like several archetypes, but only one will feel more strongly nourishing instead of depleting. To me, I can relate to all the archetypes at times, but there is one that feels most like home to me, most comfortable, most like, this is not work at all and it's not draining, this is the one that you need to pay the most attention to. So let's start with the first archetype, the queen, the sovereign. This archetype is driven by self-respect and alignment. It's not the energy of control. There's no micromanagement or there shouldn't be micromanagement with the queen. But it's an expectation that the world, or at least her relationship, orients around her presence. So here's how you know you're a queen at your core, not just bossy or confident. If you're a queen, you don't actually want to manage anyone. You want to be responded to. You lose attraction the minute you have to explain the obvious, not because you're cruel, but because competence is like foreplay to you. Your standards feel calm and steadfast. You don't necessarily enjoy punishing for real. And I'm not talking about punishment, which is kinky fun, but I'm talking about, like, for example, if your submissive fucks up a task, you beat your ass knowing that they don't enjoy pain. It's not fun for them, but that's what they deserve for fucking up, right? That's not really the queen archetype energy. She doesn't enjoy that. You tend to soften after respect is established, not before. And chaos doesn't excite you. It repels you. Under stress, queens don't like to yell. They withdraw. They go cold. They disengage. And it's not punishment. It's more self-regulation for queens. Queens thrive with submissives who are service-oriented, always respectful. They find pride in raising themselves to meet their queen's expectations, and they're typically very self-regulating. Queens burn out with submissives who tend to want to be more parented or require more emotional processing. If you're nodding slowly right now, that's a clue that you might be a queen. Now let's get into the next archetype, the matriarch. This archetype is driven by growth and emotional safety. Power for her, it's not about distance, it's not about ruling, it's about stability. If you're a matriarch, you instinctively track emotional states in the room. You notice shifts in energy or behavior or moods before they're spoken. You are extremely empathic. You feel powerful when someone softens under your guidance, when they can sigh in the container of your femdom, not when they cower, not when people are like shaking and cowering in your presence. That you don't feel power in those cases like some femdoms do. Correction comes naturally to you with warmth, even when you're firm. So not necessarily like a big disciplinarian. It's more like a teaching sort of role. You're deeply triggered by emotional irresponsibility, avoidance, shutdowns, silent resentments, and you are also triggered by seeing perhaps other femdoms be careless emotionally with their subs. Leadership to you feels synonymous with care. Under stress, matriarchs tend to overfunction. They give more. When they're stressed, they'll explain more. If they're stressed, they're going to hold you more. Until one day they're exhausted and quietly resentful. So these are things that you need to watch out for if you're a matriarch type femdom or if you're serving one. Matriarchs thrive with submissives who are emotionally open. They're growth-oriented and they're responsive, like highly responsive submissives work well with the matriarch type. They burn out with avoidant submissives or ones who are more stoic or submissives who outsource their inner work. Like if you're looking on ChatGPT for therapeutic emotional connection and understanding things instead of trying to figure them out on your own, that type of person is generally not going to work as well with the matriarch types that require their submissives to be in touch with their inner self, their inner world, and their emotions. You're not the matriarchal archetype if emotional labor drains you faster than it rewards you. And I'm going to repeat that. You're not the matriarchal archetype if emotional labor, like talking things through, deep communication, if it drains you faster than it rewards you. And keep in mind, it is absolutely normal to see some of yourself or some of your partner in every single one of these archetypes. But like I said, one of them is going to feel like it fits more than the other. And that's your main one. Okay. Our next archetype on the list is the Siren. The Siren is driven by desire and psychological pull. This one's not about rules. It's not about an intricately designed structure for your dynamic. It's all about magnetism. If you are a Siren, power feels strongest when it's unspoken, when it's in a look, a pause, a shift in tone. Rigid rules suffocate you and they kill desire. So you lead best through your moods, your presence, and your emotional gravity, not by specific instructions or instruction giving. Attention is what fuels you. Obligations drain you. And you're not a chaser. You don't like to chase. You allow pursuit. This one is more like animalistic, I think. Under stress, Sirens don't argue. They tend to detach. They'll lose interest. They go quiet. It's just, it's sort of a shut off for them because it is an energy, mood, very mood-based archetype. Siren's energy thrives with submissives who are desire-driven. They work well with submissives who are very imaginative and actively engaged. There's a lot of back and forth, both energetically, physically, and mentally. Sirens burn out with passive submissives who want to wait to be told what to want. A submissive who craves being told in detail how they want things done is not really going to be a good match for the Siren. She notices everything, but she doesn't have that attention to minute details. It's not really the main focus for her. If chemistry feels like your primary language of power, this one is probably you. Now, let's ground things by moving on to the next archetype, the Enforcer. The Enforcer is driven by order and accountability. This archetype doesn't equate love with softness. Love is follow through for them. Love is action. If you're an Enforcer, repeated mistakes irritate you more than the big ones. So it's very much, this is a lot of probably what you see in porn femdoms, very punishment oriented. You feel calmer when the consequences are clear. You thrive with very structured rules and their appropriate consequences. You associate structure with safety, and chaos is delegated to a feeling of disrespect. Emotional spirals exhaust the Enforcer. And when rules are followed, you become generous, warm, even playful. Under stress, Enforcers tighten control, not to dominate, but they're stabilizing the dynamic to get things back into alignment with how you see they should be. Enforcers thrive with submissives who want discipline, who want improvement, and need very clear expectations. The written rule book of exactly what you should do step by step and what each punishment and repercussion will be if you fail. Enforcers burn out with chaotic or inconsistent partners. They don't do well with submissives who push back, who question their authority or why they're doing things or need to be explained, or they don't like submissives, or they don't work well with submissives who can be inconsistent or lazy. Like, yeah, I'm going to get around to it. I just haven't yet. That doesn't work well with enforcers. You are not an enforcer if you avoid conflict at all times, or if you soften your boundaries when experiencing a little pushback. That's not really enforcer energy. If accountability feels like care to you, then you're probably an enforcer. Now, on to our fifth archetype, the strategist, or as I prefer to see it, the architect. The architect is driven by coherence and sustainability. Power for her lives in systems. If you're a strategist, like you think in frameworks, not in moments, you enjoy designing dynamics or creating blueprints for your relationship or for a scene, almost more than enforcing them. You're probably a strategist or an architect. Chaos bothers you not because it's messy, but because it's inefficient. You lead best with plans, not with pressure. And intimacy for you comes from alignment, not necessarily from intensity. Under stress, strategists mentally disengage. They tend to overthink, and then they step back to redesign or reevaluate the situation. Strategists thrive with analytical, consistent, long-term submissives. They burn out with impulsive partners or those who resist planning. You are not a strategist archetype if you crave spontaneity. Not that you don't enjoy it occasionally, but like if you crave it, if you need things to be mixed up, you're not the strategist archetype. If you've ever thought, this would all just work better if, then you might be one. You know, if you've got that planning mindset or that thing that goes on in your head that says, this could be better. I know how to do this better, you know? So there we have it. Those are the 5 main female-led relationship archetypes. Maybe this has helped you to understand yourself or your partner with more clarity. What now? Well, it's good to know these to help you learn and grow within your own femdom dynamic, but also to prevent burnout. Burnout in female-led relationships rarely comes from dominance itself. It comes from malalignment, misalignment. In an ideal female-led relationship, of course there will be moments of disharmony, but for the most part, it's going to feel empowering and somewhat energizing for both parties. If there is malalignment within the dynamic, or if one party is expecting that the femdom should be a certain way that's not their innate energy, or the femdom tries to act in a way that they feel like they should, but it's not in line with their authentic femdom style, then it's not going to be a long-term sustainable dynamic. Queens burn out with emotional dependence. Matriarchs burn out with avoidant subs. Sirens burn out with passivity. Enforcers burn out with chaos. Strategists burn out with impulsivity. A consistent, successful female-led relationship isn't about intensity or isn't about when you're on or off. It's about fit. That's really the key. You know? So here's what I want you to begin marinating on today. The most dominant thing you can do is to stop forcing power to look a certain way. Let it move through you naturally and notice which archetype relaxes you, which one feels sustainable, which one feels like home, and honor that, because dominance isn't loud. It's not in your face. It's not a list of should be's or should do's or should look like. It's about alignment with yourself and with your submissive. If you want to go deeper or you're still a little puzzled, I'm going to link a quiz I made below. Look at me getting all fancy making quizzes. But I've linked below, and you can find it on my website on the podcast area. There's just a little tab that says quizzes. This is the only one I have on there, but in the future I'll make more. But this is a female archetype quiz, and you take the quiz. I want you to notice your primary and then your secondary archetypes, and let that help inform you how you lead, who you choose, and how you structure your dynamics. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Thank you for joining me this week. For fun, I'd love to hear what you think your archetype is, or which one sounds most appealing to you subs out there. And which one would you guess is my main archetype? I have 2 pretty up there ones. They're definitely stronger than the other 3. So I'd love to hear your guesses. Thank you for joining me this week on Into the Dungeon. You can find my personal offerings, like that quiz, as well as my email on my website, www.cat, that's with a K, nash.com. I love hearing from my listeners, so my email's on there. Stay powerful, stay aligned, and remember, you don't need to perform dominance. You already embody it. You just need to embrace your particular flavor of dominance. And as always, stay kinky, my pets.